For the first time in the 237-year history of the American presidency, one of the 46 men who has served in that office is a convicted felon. After 2 days of deliberations, the jury in Donald Trump's criminal trial in New York City has unanimously found the former president and current likely Republican nominee guilty on all 34 counts of falsifying business records. Mr. Trump spoke outside the courthouse following the verdict.
This was a disgrace. This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt. It's a rigged trial, a disgrace. They wouldn't give us a venue change. We were at 5% or 6% in this district, in this area. This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here.
Before we begin breaking down the verdict, we want to remind viewers how we got here in the first place. Prosecutors allege, and the jury believed, that the former president, his then attorney Michael Cohen, and National Enquirer publisher David Pecker met at Trump Tower in 2015. They claim the three discussed how to conceal negative stories about Trump in order to get him elected. In October 2016, Cohen and an attorney for adult film actress Stormy Daniels negotiated a $130,000 deal to keep her quiet about an alleged sexual encounter with Trump in 2006. Trump, the jury believed, reimbursed Cohen for the payment, claiming it was for legal fees. That was the criminal issue at the center of this case. For more, let's bring in Errol Barnett and Katrina Kaufman outside the courthouse in Lower Manhattan. Errol is CBS News national correspondent, and Katrina is a CBS News campaign reporter and attorney. Katrina, you've been in the courtroom throughout this trial. Tell us what it was like when the verdict was read.
So I was sitting in the courtroom on the end of one of the rows when the verdict was read, watching the jury, watching Trump. He was just looking straight ahead, very stone-faced. His eyes were so squinted, I honestly couldn't even tell if they were open for some of the time. But the foreman read that he was guilty on all counts, and then the judge goes and confirms with each juror that they concur with that verdict. And so Trump looked at those jurors one by one as they affirmed that they were finding him guilty on all 34 counts in this case. And then when it came to leave the room, Trump got up, turned around, and he and his son, Eric, who'd been sitting slightly behind him, had a quick handshake. Eric had also just been sitting there looking at the jury, looking ahead at his father. And when he walked out of the room, he passed right by me with, I think, the deepest frown that I've ever seen on his face, followed by his attorney, Todd Blanche, who just looked equally morose, and his son and the rest of his team trailing behind him.
Katrina, was there any audible response from either the peanut gallery or the prosecutors or anybody?
I didn't hear any audible response. He just really, honestly sat there just looking so morose, looking straight ahead, almost as though he was trying to block out what was going on, but also hearing it at the same time. But there was very little reaction that I could see. I did see Eric. I was watching him as the charges were being read, and the foreman was saying that he was guilty on the counts. He started shaking his head no slightly as he was looking ahead at his dad.
Errol, this is the first conviction of an American president, a president who has created extraordinary swirl everywhere he goes, and who has some durable and diehard supporters. So with that kind of setup, what was the mood like outside? This also just taking place in a city where people like to go about their business even when extraordinary things are happening all right around them.
Yeah, John, that's certainly evident now. What's interesting is when it was clear that there was a verdict, there was a sense, a palpable sense out here of some type of excitement. You have pro-Trump supporters who've been showing up outside the courthouse for many weeks, and also anti-Trump protesters. What we witnessed after we reported that Trump was guilty on all 34 felony counts is that you had a few dozen pro and anti-Trump protesters here in the streets behind us, as well as a healthy mix of just regular New Yorkers who some were gathering to head towards Trump's motorcade before it left the courthouse. So after the verdict was read, after Trump passed Katrina, Trump was inside the courthouse for a good 30 minutes and then was seen assembling on his motorcade before departing the courthouse, and he was welcomed both by pro-Trump supporters who had lined the streets and anti-Trump demonstrators. Some of those anti-Trump demonstrators you might hear behind us who were chanting on each count, guilty and guilty. And we should also note that one aspect that added to the mood both inside and outside the courthouse was just how relatively quickly these 12 jurors decided unanimously that Donald Trump was guilty. Yesterday, it was only roughly 4 hours of deliberation before they sent back a note requesting more guidance from Judge Merchan and more testimony, specifically from David Pecker. This morning started with them getting that guidance from the judge, getting testimony from David Pecker read back to them. And that's significant because Cohen, of course, had credibility issues. The judge had said you should consider him an accomplice, and so you can't convict based on his testimony alone unless it is corroborated by other testimony and other evidence. And that's precisely what the jurors wanted to go back and examine after they got the additional testimony read to them this morning. So they seem to hone in on the Trump Tower meeting of 2015, the nexus of the scheme, and everything David Pecker said about it that lined up with Cohen's testimony before they returned this unanimous verdict. So relatively a fast decision by this 12-person jury who was made now, an historic decision.
And Katrina, we should note we have not, as far as I'm aware, heard anything from the jury, reminding that at least one person who was in the jury was concerned and left before this all started because of safety concerns. So we don't know whether we'll hear from the jury, though the judge, as I understand, has said they can talk. Katrina, you watched this whole thing. Were you surprised by the speed, by the outcome? Just what struck you in terms of the argument that Errol was making there? And it sounds like the police are doing a little crowd control behind you. What surprised you about this, Katrina?
I mean, I was absolutely surprised by the speed. I guess to set the scene a little bit more for you, we actually had thought that we were done for the day. The judge brought us all into the courtroom, had said that he was going to release the jury at 4:30, and he was just going to step out for a few minutes. And so we were all waiting, thinking that there was going to be a whole other day of deliberation. But when the judge returned, he said he had gotten a note from the jury. They had their verdict, and they just wanted 30 more minutes to fill out the verdict sheet. So I honestly thought that we were probably going to have another day on this, but this jury has clearly taken the case very seriously. They are always extremely attentive. They are taking lots of notes. This was actually to an alternate, but the judge noted that he saw one of them go through 3 different notebooks during this trial. And to what Errol was saying earlier, they wanted a number of pieces of testimony read back, and they also wanted to hear a part of the jury instruction. It was a significant amount of pages, but they referenced one part specifically, and it was about inference, and they wanted to hear about something related to rain that the judge had written, and it essentially said that, if you wake up in the morning and you see that it's wet outside and you see umbrellas, you can deduce that it rained during the night, and that was something they could apply in this case, that if all of the facts surrounding something led to a certain conclusion, that you could deduce that conclusion if it seemed rational and reasonable. And I think given the many pieces that the jury had to tie together in this case, that was very significant that they wanted to hone in on that detail.
And just quickly on that point, Katrina, that is a legal principle that exists in the law. In other words, you're allowed to use your own reason. You don't need to have videotaped evidence of the crime as alleged. If your reason and the facts leads you to a conclusion, that's not some crazy new route in the law. That's something one would be taught in law school.
Absolutely not. Yes, that is inference. It's just, I think the way that he described it was very palpable for them to understand. And obviously the jury instructions are all about telling them how to apply the law to the facts of this very complicated case. It was a very layered legal charge that they had to comprehend and wrap their minds around. But I think being in that room, the prosecution put on an extremely strong case. And we've talked about it before, but watching the progression of the witnesses and the way it came together was honestly almost like watching a puzzle come together very tightly by the end. And I think they did a really good job of weaving together this narrative, of finding so much documentation, all of the text messages, the emails, the audio recordings. That was another actually interesting part of this morning is the jury requested headphones, and they ended up either giving them both speakers and headphones, and there were some audio materials in this. One of them was the secret recording that Michael Cohen had made of Donald Trump when they seemed to be talking about the Karen McDougal deal. And we don't know exactly why they wanted it, but it did strike me that when Joshua Steinglass for the prosecution gave his closing argument, there was some debate over whether you could actually hear Trump say the word 150 on the tape. And what 150 means is that's the amount that Karen McDougal was paid for her story. And the prosecution said it indicated that he had knowledge of the fact that they were paying her, of the amount. And he said to the jury, you can get this recording. You can have it in the jury room. I encourage you to play it as loud as you want, as many times as you want. And I promise you that you will hear 150 if you do that. And so when they asked for speakers and headphones, I wondered if that might be what they were doing in there.
Right. That's the September 2016 taped meeting about McDougal, which is not Stormy Daniels, but creates this evidence pattern that the former president was quite concerned about this set of issues and set him on the path to what ultimately happened with Daniels. Errol, let me ask you this question. Safety, I mentioned it before. What's the posture around there right now? And what concerns do officials have about either the safety with respect to the jurors or just in response to this verdict?
Well, it was evident that the NYPD, which is used to, conducting high-profile cases and allowing a busy place like New York to keep operating while protecting everyone who is involved, including the media, it was noteworthy that for today and yesterday, they actually cleared the street behind us, which on the right you'll see the courthouse, on the left is where the media, most of the media is assembled. They cleared it of all parked vehicles for today and yesterday, whereas for the past 6 weeks, people could park their cars as they wish. They wouldn't allow people along the street behind us to stop walking. You could walk if you had business in the court or if you needed to get somewhere, but onlookers who would stop and take pictures and take video and just watch would be ushered along. Let's not forget that just a few weeks ago, the public park directly across from the courthouse had an incident where a man set himself on fire and he ended up passing away that following weekend, but the park had remained open to the public as an example of the NYPD's efforts to allow the city to operate as possible and to have the smallest footprint as possible. But also, as I think we mentioned, this group behind us, which has been growing in the past hour or so, some of them did rush down to where Trump's motorcade was about to exit. Then we saw about half a dozen NYPD trucks and SUVs line the street as well as kind of a show of force. So the NYPD, it would seem, has kind of successfully allowed this trial to take place. Plenty of other trials and proceedings are taking place at the same time, despite the fact that we've had a former president with full Secret Service protection in and out of this building each day these past 6 weeks or so.
History takes place and the people walk on. Errol Barnett and Katrina Kaufman outside the courthouse for us. Thank you very much.